All right, so I just got back from an early screening of him. Thank you so much for the early invite there. This is a film that I'm happy to say I didn't really know much about going into. I think I saw the teaser, and that was it. I knew it had something to do with football and the pressures of being a football player, and that was about it. I knew it had a horror element to it, and it looked a little abstract. I know Jordan Peele produced it, so everything sounded pretty cool. And I will say, going into it, it's probably important for you to know what my background is with sports. That is to say, almost non-existent. I do watch the Super Bowl every year. To me, that's basically a holiday. You get together with family, eat some good food, have some good beer, you know, watch something, you watch the game, and so I always do that. And then unless the Chicago team is doing really well, I'll pay attention. Like, it almost doesn't even matter what the sport is. If it's hockey with the Blackhawks or, like, obviously Bears with football or White Sox Cubs, anything like that, I'll pay attention. But I'm just giving you the heads up that I'm not that big an expert on sports. I'm probably the least qualified to talk about. But even with that said, I feel like I have enough know-how to know how much pressure there can be being an athlete, certainly. And this not only taps into the pressures of the physical demands of it, but certainly the celebrity of it as well. And the pressure not just of the physical demand, but also from your friends and family and so forth. But what I enjoy is that the film is not... It isn't just that, necessarily. This film, like I said, does go abstract in certain areas. I would probably say the film is maybe 70% has a foot in reality and 30% has a foot in just pure abstract craziness. Until a certain point, but we'll get to that in a bit. And I think for the most part it works well because early on, without going into spoilers, he suffers an injury to his head, and that's when sort of the abstract imagery begins. It starts maybe a hint before then, but you can tell they're building up that the stuff he's seeing is either in his mind or it's very much the feeling somebody would be going through is projected everywhere. Like when you look at the anxiety and all the build up, and again, the physical training and the mental demands, all the stuff, everything he's seeing, the visuals of it, the imagery is very much how somebody would feel going through this. Like this is kind of, like the imagery that probably pop in someone's head, going through so much of this. And it's very important to know going in, like I said, there is some abstract stuff in here, that this film is not meant to be taken literally. There's a lot of truth in it in terms of, again, the a lot of the stress and anxiety that players can go through. Again, the physical demands and the effect it has on both the mind and body. But like the setup for this is that a quarterback is probably, in his last season here, and he's going to pass the baton on to the next person and pass the torch on. And this quarterback coming up, he's like the hot stuff, and he's gonna, again, probably replace this guy. So he's showing him how to be a quarterback. And I'm thinking to myself, even the limited knowledge I have of football, I don't think this is a thing. And some of the terminology they have in this and some of the setup and even how tough the training is exaggerated. And while they do play mind games on the main character, in reality, they wouldn't go this far. I'm sure they would go very far in reality, and there's probably stuff I'm sure that is done that shouldn't be done. It is very grueling and everything, but this is not a film where I can see somebody watching this movie say, well, that doesn't happen. That would never happen in football. Just know that is not the idea. This is not supposed to be a literal interpretation. I feel like it makes that very clear, but still, I think some people could be going in thinking, well, he hit his head, so, or, he had an injury, so he's seeing some weird stuff sometimes. It isn't just that. This is very much like the perception of how somebody would see the world under all this pressure. That's mainly how we're seeing all this. So the mix is pretty good, and they do definitely play around with the idea of is what you're seeing real or not. There's one element in this where somebody is being attacked, and I remember thinking to myself, well, okay, I know this is all going to be in his head, or is this going to be the abstract stuff, whatever. And then it turns out it's real. And there's a great scene later where it's referenced, and the Wayans quarterback, is saying, what are you talking about? And then you're like, wait, did that happen? And then maybe like a few minutes into the conversation, he's like, oh yeah, now I remember. And he kind of smiles like, yeah, I'm messing with you, and I've gone through this mindset too. That's why I'm messing with you. Like, he understands what he's going through, and now he's the next one. So he's going back and forth between being just an absolute monster to him, but then other times being like really supportive and really kind, and he almost kind of breaks his shell a little bit, is almost saying like, don't be like me, don't let them get inside your head, but then he'll get inside his head, so even he's going back and forth about what he wants. And Wayans in this, I think, is pretty good, and it took me a second to kind of warm up to him, because at first I thought, well, this is the performance I've seen several times of somebody where you don't know if you can trust him, or he seems like a nice guy, but something's just a little off and he's going to end up, maybe going crazy or something like that. But so when he started off that way, I was thinking to myself, well, boy, I feel like he could go a little further with this. But then as it kept going, I found I actually really liked that I couldn't really tell how in control or not in control he was, and how much was a game and wasn't a game, because he didn't always do the exact same things that actors in this position do. This film has a very similar vibe to style films we've seen a lot recently, either mocking celebrity or sort of what I call the Eat the Rich movies, where they make these celebrities, really big and crazy, and they do big and crazy things. And why? Oh, because they're big and crazy. Like, once in a while they might explain it, but for the most part it's just showing the difference between the super rich, super successful, super popular, and everyone else. Where with this one, it's very easy to see, even without going too much into explanations, why these people are the way they are. Just the physical demands of it are just so strenuous. And again, it's exaggerated here, certainly, but we all know athletes have to go through just extreme physical demands. And you do watch it saying, man, what would this do to a person's mind, and how much control does there have to be? And I personally really like stories where the question is asked, to be successful, to do the difficult things, how much of yourself do you have to ignore? How much of your humanity do you have to turn away? And I think those are very difficult questions to ask, and there are no clear answers of it. I love movies that question that. And this one does dive quite a bit into it, and this character is certainly being tested for that, for this life of, not just glory in terms of like, it being rich and successful and everything, but I mean just being the best. With that said, the imagery in this, both abstract and, some of it meant to be taken literally, sometimes, a fair amount of times, is a little on the nose. Okay, they'll use the term goat a lot. He's the goat. And I'm thinking to myself, boy, they're using that term a little bit more than usual, I feel like, even in a sports movie. And it was easy to put together, okay, what they're doing with this word as it keeps going. And the name of the team he's playing for is the Saviors. And there's kind of all this imagery that you're like, okay, all right, yeah, we got it kind of thing. But it works okay because this is the world of football. This is the world of mascots and cheerleaders and big, bright, colorful symbols and jets flying over with red, white, and blue and everything. I mean, so it's already an over-the-top, medium, if you will. So it's something where you go, all right, it can get away with this. Where it has a problem for me, and I think is going to have a problem for a lot of audiences, is the ending, the quote-unquote climax of the movie. And I won't ruin anything, but it does basically, I don't want to say it goes 100% abstract, but it is definitely, it switches. It's like, I wouldn't even say it's 70% abstract, 30% reality. I'd probably say it's something more like 85% abstract and 15% reality. Man, even that seems pretty generous. It just really goes bonkers in the last chunk here. And again, a part of me goes, well, it's built up to, and again, it's very, very obvious, but it's not something like that horrible remake of Black Christmas that came out, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago, where you're watching it and you're just like, no, this makes no sense. This is crazy, and it's literally just the message and nothing else, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, and that's supposed to take place in some form of reality. No, they set up early, this is going to be abstract, this is going to be strange, but I still care for the people watching this story, and I like not always knowing what's going on, but still caring about the people I'm looking at, especially the main character here. And when it gets to the last chunk, the big climax of the movie, because you could argue there's kind of two climaxes to this, and the first one is silly, but I'm like, all right, no, I'm on board with this enough. Again, it kind of matches, and then the following climax just goes so over the top and so silly to a point where it's almost like they're telling you, yeah, you're not supposed to care anymore. This is just the message, the imagery, the total insanity. You're not supposed to care if anyone makes it out alive, dead, whatever, what the outcome is going to be. This is all just for the imagery. And that lost me a little bit. Even though the imagery is fun, some of it is clever. It's imagery I could see, I don't know, 20 years from now, somebody putting in a music video, like an homage to this movie. You know what I mean? I can totally see that happening because it is very memorable imagery, but it did hit a point where I realized, man, it needed a foot in reality. It needed a much firmer anchor in reality for that last chunk in order for me to care. I'm not even saying it has to be 50-50 on that or even whatever, 40-60, but I mean, it really needed to have a little bit more groundedness, at least in the characters, if that's even a word. Probably not. But I needed to be a little bit more invested, at the very least in the main character, and it really did just look like, okay, we're going for total dream on this. And even then you could do, if they have something at the end that brought you back to reality like a little bit, and it does. It just goes totally crazy. And I think that's going to lose a lot of people. Well, first off, I think too many people are going to, again, either take it literally or they are going to get too invested, rightfully so, in the main character and what's going on. But when it gets to this last chunk, I can just see it losing people, and it didn't quite lose me. I still liked the film. I am gonna remember it. I'm gonna, certainly take the ending imagery with me and a lot of the atmosphere and certainly the commentary with me, especially as someone who's not super into sports. But I do often think about, man, what players have to go through, just athletes in general, what they have to go through. I mean, it just must take such a toll on them. And this is very much about that, but I think by just going so bonkers silly at the end, it almost shows a little bit of disrespect to that. Like, yeah, we're taking this seriously. It's abstract, it's weird, and there is comedy, and there's certainly horror elements to it, but we really want you to focus on what this character is going through. And then when you get there, like I said, it's almost giving permission to not care. And that felt like a little bit of a cheat for me. It felt like there could have been something stronger. And you can go crazy. You can go absolutely nuts here. It does in several other parts of the movie, but I really feel like we should still care by the end. And at least for me, I stopped caring. Even though it was very entertaining, I stopped caring about what was going to happen to really anybody in this. And I could be wrong. Maybe people watch and be like, that's the best part of the movie. It did just totally surrender to this abstract insanity. But I don't know. That's where it lost me. But even then, I can't look back at the movie and say, yeah, it's not worth it. I can't even look at that last chunk and say it's awful, though I get the feeling some will. I still look at the whole film and see what it's trying to do. Sometimes a little too obvious on the head, even for something that's supposed to be, this commentary on sports, particularly football and celebrity and everything. But like I said, it still works well enough. And I am still going to remember that imagery at the end. So like I said, I give it a pass, but man, I feel like there's a great film in here. As of now, it's good. It's a good film. I do like it did some things differently. I do like they're talking on this subject matter of, again, just the difficulties of being not just an athlete, but like a star athlete, and what must go into that. Even the fans, they very cleverly tried to make them look like, sort of scary creatures sometimes, but they are still just literal fans too, but then some step the line very much big time. And again, you don't know how much is in his head and how much isn't, or how dangerous something is and how dangerous something isn't. I think that's a big element that they're talking about in this film that, again, must cross athletes so often. I mean, not just what's dangerous in terms of how you're physically being pushed, but what's dangerous in terms of interactions with other people, and even interactions with fans, interactions with people handling the business end of everything, interactions with interviews. There's so many things that can be dangerous that you have to just keep in mind the whole time. So that's all being addressed, and there is definitely a comedic element to it that isn't just stopping the film to tell jokes or put in a quip, which I like. And I feel like, even though I like Jordan Peele's movies, sometimes he would rely a little too heavily on that, where I feel like he doesn't need that. I think he's getting better. I think Nope was much better at having the comedy just be the insanity of what's going on. It didn't always need a zany line. You can have a little funny line to have the characters, be likable and stuff, but you know what I mean, where everything just comes to a stop and here's the funny moment kind of thing. This movie doesn't really do that. It lets the comedy come from the absurdity of not only what's going on, but how it's being shown. And certainly sometimes the grotesqueness of some of the things they're putting this character through, or what they do to other people to try and teach the main character a lesson, can be very difficult to watch sometimes. But then, sometimes it'll be really something awful going on, but then other times they'll be laughing, like covered in blood, just, oh man, we got you good. I mean, like, it's really playing around with this idea in a very smart way. For me, I really wish it stuck the landing more. That was the one element where I felt like, man, if they perfected that and made me care in that last chunk, I would maybe say this is a great movie. But it is also, to keep in mind, I'm talking about the celebrity and the training and everything. I'm really not kidding when I say 3/4 of this movie is just training. That really is it. If you think you're going to see them on the field and, going against other players and everything and trying to get whatever to the Super Bowl and everything, that's not it. This whole movie, like I said, majority of it is just training. So keep that in mind as well. I don't want to give the idea that this is a film that, while it's talking about celebrity and everything, that this guy does go through, what you usually see in a film like this, a film about football or sports or anything like that, where they're building up to the big game. There is no big game in this. Not really. Again, depending on how abstract you want to interpret the ending. But this is something where it doesn't play by the rule book, and I'm okay with that. I like that. It might throw some viewers off, and sometimes it just went in a direction that is fun and entertaining and silly and memorable, but I did not care as much by the end as I did throughout, at the very least, the halfway point. Sometimes it would lose me a little bit because we are just watching them train for a while, but it would still win me back with something interesting. And again, just the environment and the point of view and the atmosphere they create for this guy and what he's seeing and how much is real and how much isn't is interesting and does make for a very good film. It's just not a great film, and I feel like there could be a great film in this. So, I guess I'll give it 3 out of 4, I think sounds good. It's hard to say because I've been having a bad track record with this in the past. I think I said with Doom Part 1, I liked it, but I didn't think the general public would. It was a big hit, nominated for Oscars and everything. So I don't know. It's hard for me to predict what people are going to like with a film like this. My guess would be they wouldn't get too much into some of the abstract elements, particularly in the ending, but I could be wrong. There is definitely stuff being touched upon in this that is interesting, whether you're invested in sports or not. Again, as someone who is an outsider with this, it did pull me in a very effective way, so I did enjoy it. it is hard for me to say who's gonna get into it and who isn't. Hopefully you can take all the clues I dropped here and you can put together if this is the type of movie for you. Same thing from the advertising. Again, I saw the teaser. I can't say the teaser is lying about what this is. I mean, it did feel like, oh, like this is kind of a crazy, out there, is sometimes psychedelic, intense horror slash kind of funny comedy in terms of like, just the imagery and how crazy the subject matter can be or how they're displaying it. So yeah, with that said, I would love to know your thoughts if you've seen this film. Did you think it was great? Do you think it was better than just good? Do you think that all the abstract elements and the pressure that they're showing these characters go through really did capture the insanity of sometimes what the sport has to throw at these people and these athletes? Or did you think it was terrible? It got way too goofy and they didn't have to do all this abstract stuff. They just told a straightforward story about, the anxiety of being a player. Or you think it's somewhere in between where you say, I like a lot of the weird imagery and I like football and this gave me just the right amount of that. Let me know your thoughts and I'll see you next time. Take care.